I am somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Welcome to the Rainbow Push Coalition Saturday Morning Community Forum. Each and every week we want to inspire you, we want to inform you, but we want you to become engaged in the movement. And so that's why every week we ask you to join the Rainbow Push. We want you to volunteer for the Rainbow Push. You can volunteer in any one of our offices. You can volunteer in Chicago at the national headquarters. What else can you do? You can be a part of our oratorical. What does that mean? Getting young people to become trained in oratory. So you can mobilize from your church, your community, wherever you are, your young people can be a part of our oratorical competition. If you're an educator, you can join the education division. Whatever you're doing, we have some work for you to do. Join us, or you can go to rainbowpush.org and let us know you want to volunteer. We have a lot of things that are going to be shared with you this morning in our broadcast. You're going to hear some of our graduates from Silicon Valley. We want to pay a special tribute to the generation that graduated in the midst of COVID. Our young people have been pushing for excellence, and so we want to showcase some of the young people. And each and every week this summer, we will highlight some of our outstanding graduates. And then we're going to hear our reports from around the nation, what we've been doing. We've been pushing for you, we've been serving you, and you will see the meals that we've served. You will hear from our satellite cities in Atlanta, what's happening in Atlanta and what we're doing to change the conditions. Our International Affairs Director, James Gomez, always keeps us abreast. Join Push before you need Push. We need you. We need every one of you to become a member and get 10 other people to join Push right now. This is your time. This is our time. This is our moment in history.
Good morning. My name is Christiana H. Gray, and today I will be reciting for you Prosecutors, Please Stand Up to the Police by Marilyn Mosby in honor of my granddad, William Thurman, and George Floyd. Minor offenses should not lead to deadly encounters. But when police brutality happens, the state should come down hard. Watching the suffocation of George Floyd in Minneapolis raises disturbing questions, like, why is this officer kneeling on this man's neck? Why won't this officer respond to his pleas for help? Why won't the other officers intervene? 5 years ago, Baltimore residents asked the same questions after a young black man by the name of Freddie Carlos Gray Jr. died in police custody. Why is this officer sitting on this man's back? Why did this officer throw Mr. Gray into the back of a police wagon, head first, handcuffed and shackled, where his spine was subsequently severed? During the eruption of the Floyd case, I have wrestled with other questions, like what happened before the cameras rolled? And why was Mr. Floyd arrested in the first place? The answers to these questions will help us how we shape in this moment. Thank you, Operation Push and Reverend Jesse L. Jackson for this wonderful opportunity.
Not only is change on the way, but change is right now.
Hundreds of people with faith leaders and elected officials marched through West Side streets calling for peace and unity.
All over the world, they are crying with one loud voice, Black
These same streets witnessed to pain, frustration, violence, and looting after the police killing of George Floyd.
Take your hands off of the robot neck so that we can breathe.
The focus now is to turn that pain into purpose for a more just America, a more just Chicago. Hundreds marching toward an apartment where Dr. King once lived, highlighting the disparity in housing along racial lines, stopping along the way, bowing heads to honor George Floyd.
And I'm here standing up for my black friends and co-workers and clients who don't get the same treatment that I do, and things need to change.
A march for hope as Chicago grapples with a history of systemic oppression, inequity, and racism toward the black community.
Must report that Chicago is far from being the promised land.
Marchers here echoing King's sentiment that we must never lose infinite hope, including Reverend Jesse Jackson.
As we focus on the issue of police justice, Dr. King says housing justice, economic justice, healthcare justice, because everybody is somebody.
Chicago is a town of two cities, and you can see it in the disparity of education. Yes, we believe that all of God's children, regardless of their neighborhood, zip code, or race, they deserve to have a first-class education.
We believe that even though we are kids, we have voices too, and they must be heard. Now is our time.
This is literally a marathon. And it's a marathon that requires us to take up the mantle from those who came before us. There are people who have died on the cause for us to be able to be in this park today who are counting on us to keep it moving forward. That when we talk about the ancestors and what our ancestors would say, I have to remind you that you, young people, are future ancestors. You, young people, will have to answer for those ahead of us about what we did in this moment. And in this moment, you all are showing up and showing out and saying that you have had enough. That you have had enough. And that this collective, we're tired, we're exhausted. And people say, how could you be so exhausted so fast? Because you're carrying 400 years of legacies of those who got you here. You're carrying it in your DNA. And what I know about our DNA, as Kendrick Lamar would say, we got some special stuff in our DNA. You don't get to go through the things that we've gone through in this country and still get up and rise and do what we've been able to do. We still got a ways to go, but it's in our DNA to be resilient. It's in our DNA to be bold. It's in our DNA to fight. It's in our DNA to march. And what I know is that as painful, as hard, and as uncomfortable as this isn't going away with cute pictures of people hugging together. This isn't going away with things that make us feel good for the moment. This goes away when the discomfort for everybody goes away. So young people of all stripes, keep marching, keep fighting, keep being the ancestors that you will be for a future that will be much better than the present, that will be guided by those who got us here in the first place.
How can we stop this cycle of injustice? When will we be considered enough? When will we be treated normally? When will the color of our skin be an asset and not a danger? When can we feel comfortable running? When can we feel comfortable running, watching birds, playing in the park, driving, sleeping, living? It's time to change the unjust narrative of Black people in America. Our lives are important, and they have always been. We are important, and we will always be. We mattered on the slave ships. We mattered on the plantations. We mattered when we were getting lynched. We mattered when we sat on the back of the bus. We mattered when we didn't have the right to vote, and we matter today. It's time to change the rhetoric wretched narrative of black people in America. We have to continue to talk about the killings happening at the hands of police and racist white people. We have to continue to talk about George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Sandra Bland, and countless others. Now, doing nothing won't work. This is a battle we all have to fight. Our voices are needed now more than ever. Sign petitions, go to more protests, donate, educate others, and continue to speak up about the systemic racism plaguing this country. It's time to change the unfair narrative of black people in this country. This isn't only for us, but this is for future generations to come. This is so we never have to see another hashtag. This is so we never have to watch another black man die on our TVs. This is so we're not afraid when we're pulled over. This is for every single black person in this country who is tired and fed up with the way we're treated. This is for every single black person in this country who has been victimized since 1619. This is for every single person in this country who thinks enough is enough. Change won't come if we wait for some other person or wait for some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek. Barack Obama. Imagine the impact we would have if we stood up for what we knew was right. Imagine the impact we would have if we advocated and didn't stop the fight. Imagine the impact we would have if we worked to make things better than they are now. Imagine the impact we would have if we looked for a solution instead of just asking how. Imagine the impact we would have if we realized what we could do. The real change is inside of you.
Say I am somebody. I am somebody. Respect me, protect me, never neglect me. My mind is the pearl. I can learn anything in the world. Stop the violence, save the children. Stop the violence, save the children. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive. A few days ago, Congressman Bobby Rush, office was broken into and 13 police were not doing their job. Should have been fired. Because they have something called immunity clause, it's hard to fire them. When Laquan McDonald was killed 3 years ago, police who killed him was out of 400 days silent. He went to jail. First time police had been in jail for killing a black in 50 years in Chicago. It's not right. When the case of Ahmaud Arbery was killed in Brunswick, Georgia, he held back the machinery, the film for 15 days. So whenever anybody kills anybody, they must face justice. Police must live within the law. Police don't have the right to kill people without consequences.
That on the first day of January, in the year of our Lord, 1863, all persons held as slaves within any state or designated part of a state, the people whereof shall be in rebellion against the United States, shall be thenceforward and forever free. And by virtue of the power and for the purpose aforesaid, I do order and declare that all persons held as slaves within said designated states and parts of states are henceforward shall be free. and that the executive government of the United States, including the military, naval authorities, therefore will recognize and maintain freedom of said persons. And I hereby enjoin upon the people so declared to be free to abstain from all violence unless in necessary self-defense. And I recommend to them that in all cases, when allowed, they labor faithfully for reasonable wages. And upon this act, sincerely believed to be an act of justice, warranted by the Constitution, upon military necessity, I invoke the considerate judgment of mankind and the gracious favor of Almighty God. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the United States to be affixed. In recognition of Juneteenth. Happy Juneteenth. Please take a moment to read a brief history and synopsis of Juneteenth and its origins. It's exceptionally important for you to know this. This has been presented by Dr. Karina Ray of the AAAS Department.
You know, Juneteenth is something that's been around since June 19th, 1865.
On that day, Major General Gordon Granger landed in Galveston, Texas. He told the people the war was over and the enslaved were free.
I am Juneteenth. That's our slogan. It means if you're not free, then I'm not free.
Now, as it was back then, the day is a celebration.
It's so cool seeing how many people celebrate this. I didn't even know it was a thing until recently.
I get goosebumps. I almost cry when I see that parade come down the street. It's just beautiful to see how it's grown.
Norman Harris has organized the last 9 Juneteenth festivals. After recent protests over the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, he wants this year's event to be more inclusive.
We've seen how recent events have galvanized communities to come together to fight for justice.
This is what we need, like this is what we've been wanting.
But bringing people together can be tricky in the midst of a pandemic.
Trying to still make sure we're maintaining social distance in a way, it's kind of impossible at times.
For Harris, it's simply an opportunity to innovate.
And we have to continue to find solutions despite what we're going through.
Which is a lot. As they celebrate freedom, those here today know there is still more work to be done.
Juneteenth means to me progression, transition.
Juneteenth, a cross between June and 19, commemorates the official end of slavery in Texas on June 19, 1865. That's over 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation was signed into law by President Lincoln. News of their new freedoms was slow to reach some slaves throughout the country, and historians theorize that Texan slave owners suppressed the information in order to get one final cotton harvest from the slaves. On June 19, 1865, Major General Gordon Granger and Union troops arrived in Galveston to announce the war had ended and delivered General Order No. 3, which proclaimed that all slaves were free. The first official Juneteenth celebration took place in Texas a year later and became a state holiday in 1980. Juneteenth is celebrated in many ways, ranging from parades to cookouts and other activities. But Juneteenth isn't just about celebrations. It also serves as a time to further the conversation on the legacy left by slavery in the United States, and as a means of discussing ways to address it, like the hotly contested topic of reparations.
We recognize our lineage as a generational trust, as inheritance. And the real dilemma posed by reparations is just that, a dilemma of inheritance. It is impossible to imagine America without the inheritance of slavery.
First sponsored by John Conyers in 1989 and reintroduced every session until his retirement in 2017, the Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act tries to tackle the subject. The bill is now sponsored by Texas Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee in the House and Senator Cory Booker in the Senate.
Though I am gratified that we are having this hearing on Juneteenth, and for those of us who understand Juneteenth, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, there were those Africans who did not have freedom until 1865. H.R. 40 is in fact the response of the United States of America long overdue. Slavery is the original sin. Slavery has never received an apology.
After unarmed father Terrence Crutcher was shot and killed by police, hundreds protested here in Tulsa. What many didn't know is that nearly 100 years ago, on these very streets on which they were marching, hundreds of African Americans were killed in one of the darkest chapters of Tulsa's and America's history. A lot of folks around here used to whisper about it over the decades, but nobody, black nor white, wanted to talk about it. And that history was being forgotten. Before it happened, Tulsa was the scene of a thriving, wealthy black community. This was Black Wall Street. There were hundreds of black-owned businesses, everything from banks to pharmacies to the doctor's office. And black folks were making really good money. There were even 2 movie theaters, all black-owned and operated. Segregation was in full effect. We heard that there was a gentleman who owned a plane. Is that true?
Simon Barry was a pilot and owned his own plane.
Black folks were rich here, basically. They lived very good lives.
Many of them, yes. Yes, which caused some envy and anger among white people who commented, how dare those Negroes have a grand piano in their house and I don't have a piano in my house.
1921 rolls around. What happens?
Some type of confrontation between blacks and whites was inevitable because of the racial climate at that time, because of the presence of the Ku Klux Klan in almost every aspect of our society. But on this particular day, May 31st, 1921, a young black male named Dick Rowland, who worked as a shoe shine boy in downtown Tulsa, went into the Drexel building where he had been given permission to get water and use the restroom. There was a young white girl named Sarah Page who was an elevator operator. And Dick Rowland every day would go into the elevator with Sarah Page. On this particular day, after the elevator doors closed and Sarah Page and Dick Rowland were alone in the elevator, a few moments later there was a scream, the elevator doors opened, Dick Rowland ran and was later arrested, and Sarah Page initially claimed that she had been assaulted.
Brown says Page never pressed charges, but authorities did, and the damage was done. By the end of the day, the rumor mill said Page had been raped.
As word spread, angry whites were determined that they were going to take matters into their own hands.
A large crowd of white residents gathered at the courthouse. They demanded Dick Rowland be lynched. How did the black community respond to that demand to lynch this young man?
They were willing to risk their lives. They knew that they would be risking their lives to help defend Dick Rowland. And thousands of whites gathered in front of the courthouse. A white man approached a black man with a gun. He said, "What are you going to do with that gun?" He said, "I'm going to use it if I have to."
The 2 men argued. There was a struggle over the gun. It fired. The white resident was shot. All hell broke loose.
Blacks retreated to the Greenwood district where they set up a barrier at the railroad tracks and were able for a short time to keep whites from invading their community. But because they were so outnumbered and outgunned, whites eventually broke through the railroad tracks and invaded what was home to Black Wall Street, the Greenwood district.
This was the result. 35 city blocks of the black neighborhood burned to the ground. Historical photos show black residents shot dead in the streets. The historical account is that at least 300 people were killed.
There were children that were here that had been armed by their parents, that had been told that they could come down to Greenwood and shoot and kill an innocent person. Those are the same people that we grew up with in our communities, that were a part of our society.
How many black people lost their lives?
There's really no way of knowing exactly how many people lost their lives, potentially thousands of innocent men, women, and children.
What is worse, survivors say they remember death not just in the streets, but raining down from the sky.
Many of our race riot survivors have commented that they remembered seeing planes flying overhead, dropping bombs, dropping nitroglycerin bombs.
Mrs. Hazel Smith Jones is believed to be the last living survivor in Tulsa. She's 97 years old.
My daddy wasn't at home, just the kids and mama. They came and got us.
Was it white people from the city?
And got us to fairground. And we was there for about 2 or 3 days.
To the fairgrounds?
And my dad didn't know where we were.
Did your family want to leave?
My mother, you know, with all this stuff going on, she thought it might have been safer with them taking us out there and being with more people.
Everyone called it a race riot. The opinion piece in the newspaper condoned it, calling Greenwood Niggertown.
Do you consider it a riot?
No, ma'am. It was really murder. It was a massacre. My grandmother was awakened at night and just told to run. Just get up and run. And they ran. She was only 9. They ran for days. She got mixed up from her family and lost in a chicken coop.
Calling it a riot was convenient for a city run by whites. There's no statute of limitations for murder, but there is for a riot. For the black victims, it was devastating.
They never received any type of justice for losing their loved ones, for losing their homes and the businesses that they worked so hard for, that they built from the ground up.
Every insurance claim from the Greenwood neighborhood was denied. The claims totaled about $2.7 million. Black Wall Street did recover, but never to its former glory.
Do you think life is better for black folks in America now?
Yeah. Some places, yes, some places not.
If there was any clearer sign that change in race relations has happened to this community, this was it. During a march for a black father slain by a police officer, half of those marching were black and the other half white, all marching in unison, saying Black Lives Matter. But there are stark reminders of the racism that continues to thrive in some people's hearts. So the marching and the worrying continues.
We
Good morning. We are in the midst of a major drive to get more members, more people engaged and involved in Rainbow Push, supporting the programs of Push for Excellence and the Citizenship Education Fund. If you're interested in public policy and you want to help change the policies that impact those incarcerated, change the policies that impact students attending colleges and universities, if you want to be a policymaker, then you need to join Rainbow Push and join by paying your $35 right now. Some of you watch us every week. You listen to us on the radio. You're viewing us in social media. We need you to become a member. It's only $35 a year. If you believe in the scholarships that we give to thousands of students each and every year, we've awarded more than $10 million to scholars year to date. What do you have to do to give and support Push? It's really very simple. You can go to rainbowpush.org if you're on a computer and press donate. Give any amount. Every dollar is important. You want to talk to somebody, call us at 773-256-2775. You can give right now, any denomination that you choose. You can text the word PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444. Text on your cell phone. Most of you have a cell phone. Just text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to 41444, and you can give any amount that you feel comfortable giving. Or call us 773-256-2775, or go to rainbowpush.org and just press donate. Wherever you are, you can support us as we keep pushing for you.
Authorities in Georgia are scouring through videos of a violent struggle that turned deadly outside a Wendy's in Atlanta Friday night when officials say police shot and killed 27-year-old Rayshard Brooks after he allegedly resisted arrest. Officers were called to the parking lot around 10:30 p.m. with complaints of Brooks asleep in his car blocking the drive-thru. Police claim he failed a sobriety test and that when they tried to arrest him, he resisted and was able to grab an officer's taser. In this surveillance video, you can see him running away, then appearing to point the taser at the officers.
At that point, the Atlanta officer reaches down and retrieves his weapon from his holster, discharges it, strikes Mr. Brooks there on the parking lot, and he goes down.
Today, Atlanta Police Chief Erica Shields stepping down after calls for her resignation as protesters demand police reform and racial justice.
Chief Shields has offered to immediately step aside as police chief so that the city may move forward with urgency in rebuilding the trust so desperately needed throughout our communities.
Demonstrators gathering near the fast food restaurant, their rally cries even louder now.
It fueled a fire, a worse fire. We've been doing all this peaceful protesting, and in the midst of that, you guys are still killing us.
Meanwhile, cities all over the U.S. are seeing their third weekend of mass protests over the death of George Floyd. Tensions rising in places like Nashville and Seattle, where demonstrators have seized control of some areas, claiming them as autonomous zones.
We have to talk about this latest police shooting and the fact that day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, we are still confronted with these exact same issues. A couple of weeks ago, I was in the African American History Museum in Baltimore, not the big one in D.C., not the Smithsonian, but the one in Baltimore. And what you saw were signs from the 1920s or photos from the 1930s with pictures on them of black people protesting police shootings of black men. As long as we have been in this nation, as long as there's been a history of African Americans or of Africans in this country, we've had to deal with the question of the extrajudicial killings of black folks and how this nation would respond. Remember, even when we were under the quote-unquote 3/5 compromise, it wasn't that we got 3/5 of the rights of a citizen. It's not that we were treated as 3/5 of a human being. We were treated as 0/5 of a human being. We were only counted as 3/5 of a human for electoral purposes to appropriate congressional seats and as far as appropriations go. We did not get 3/5 of the rights. We were never contemplated or considered to be humans. We were chattel in this country. And even once we had the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which theoretically gave us freedom and equality, those had absolutely no impact or import without an enforcement mechanism. This is why after the end of Reconstruction, we had the Posse Comitatus and the removal of federal troops from the South. We were put back into the same situation we were beforehand, just slavery by a different name. Jim Crow, sharecropping, segregation. It wasn't until the 1960s that we finally got the civil rights, the voting rights, public accommodation, fair housing. And that was supposed to enforce the promise of the Constitution and of our founding documents that all men were created equal. But that clearly did not work either. So here we are in 2020, halfway through the year, matter of fact, we're into the summer. We got private companies sending rocket ships into space. We have magical computers that fit into our hands and can access all the information in the history of the Earth right there. We get instantaneously video chat with people from every part of the globe. We have space probes, Voyager 1 and 2, that have left our solar system and gone into interstellar space. But we are still dealing with the foundational problem of America, its original birth defect, as Condoleezza Rice has referred to it. The fact that African people in this country have never and maybe will never be treated as free and equals. Going to the case of Rayshard Brooks, the young man who was in the Wendy's parking lot, asleep in his car, supposedly drunk, and then police officers confronted him. Somebody called the cops saying somebody was asleep in their car in the parking lot. This is all regular so far. They pull the man out, they speak with him, they give him a field sobriety test, he blows into the breathalyzer, he is intoxicated. Okay, fine. So when they try to execute the arrest, he scuffles with them, grabs a taser, and runs away. Okay, he grabs the taser and runs away. And now he points the taser, and at this point he is shot in the back. Now the issue with this is, fighting with a police officer is not the type of offense that results in the death penalty. We reserve the death penalty in this country for the most heinous and despicable murderers, the people who have committed the crimes which are unforgivable. We give people the death penalty for terrorism. We give serial killers the death penalty. People who abuse children are given the death penalty. Not somebody who gets in a scuffle with police officers. Now, proper police protocol is, because he is running the other direction and has a non-lethal device with him, a taser, you let him run. He's drunk. He'll fall down in a couple feet. You have cars. You radio in, and you have backup units, just cut him off around the corner somewhere, and then take him into custody. You have his car there at the scene. You have his keys. You have his license. This isn't the most difficult situation. Officers are confronted with this situation all the time. So you don't even really need to chase him. You just let him run, and then he'll either tire out or another officer will pick him up. You have him on video so you know what he looks like. You've seen his ID. You're able to make a positive identification. There's no reason to escalate this situation. There was no need for lethal force in a situation of this nature. The officers clearly did not fear for their lives because they knew that the taser he had was not a lethal device. This is the equivalent of hearing a fly and shooting it with a rifle. But it's because of the continued dehumanization of African Americans in this country that even the slightest infraction is seen as deserving of the death penalty. So we need real solutions at this point. No more simple resignations, no more desk duty, no more simply firing people. How do we fix the systemic issues from a legislative standpoint to prevent these things from happening in the future? Because it's not that these things are happening more often as they seem. Rather, they are simply all being caught on video now, unlike in the past. And if we are truly going to be free, going to be equal, going to be 5/5 of a human being, that's going to take the actions of all of us to ensure that justice is served.
We survived the part, we must learn to live together. That's a moral obligation, an emotional obligation. We built a country on race supremacy. So we say white people are supreme, black people are inferior, 246 years. You look at the data in Louisville, there's a supreme and inferior. That's ungodly. I'm going to share this information because I think people, they have some. Louisville, the median black family income in Louisville is $35,000, white $61,000. Blacks earn 58% of what white families earn in Louisville. Average white man earns $2.7 million over a lifetime, blacks 1.8. Louisville, black poverty is 29.8%, 3 times white poverty, 10%. Business ownership, 2.4 businesses black owned in Louisville, 22% of the households are black. 73% of White House in Louisville own their own homes, 36% for black. The health disparity, housing disparity can be addressed. The universities, for example, University of Louisville, Kentucky State, and all that, Berea College. She set aside X number of targeted summer school program. Every child in Louisville should be in summer school and college in this area. Kids that go on the internet for laptops for the first time. We target basketball players, we bring them in. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying to you today is that if the universities in this state target the blacks in this state, we target for slavery, target for Jim Crow, target for lynching, target for emancipation. Yeah. We built on the law of race supremacy. Yeah. That means God would be a racist. God's not a racist. The race supremacy is a man-made idolatry that's not of God, and therefore it is not so. There's a revolt around the world where people are saying enough of this is enough. So there are 3 pandemics, the health issue, race, and poverty. The 4th is the religion. Nothing is too hard for God. I know it's tough. It's a heavy burden. You march, and those who are marching must march with their masks on and distance because the corona is killing 110,000 people dead and rising. So I'm saying to you today in this state, number 1, as you march nonviolently. And march nonviolent. Nonviolence is strong, not weak. How can I put this, Tevin? Violence is diversion. Rather than focus on police brutality, you focus on a burning car. Furthermore, not only is it a diversion when you're violent, it allows the enemy to take the fear, turn the votes. Nixon would have lost to Humphrey. When Dr. King was first killed, the first 2 or 3 days, the revolt was accepted. Then it lingered on. Nixon turned the riots into a campaign, law and order, which is what Trump is trying to do today. Right. So nonviolence keeps the focus on the main thing. You look at the number of blacks in jail in Louisville, 60%. Right. Housing, jobs. So I'm saying to Louisville, let's measure the gaps, close the gap and heal the breach.
Reverend Jackson and Jonathan, thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you for being in our city. Thank you for being a consistent voice. In a moment, I'm going to deliver the sermon for today, but in the sermon, I'm going to ask a question on behalf of a group that I am affiliated with called the American Descendants of Slavery. And our thought leader, Yvette Carnell, and Antonio Moore posed a question that I'm going to ask, and I think is absolutely critical if we are going to really fix and repair Black America. And it's my hope, Brother Jonathan, that Rainbow Push would really think about the question that I'm going to pose to Reverend Jackson and to you, sir, in the course of this message.
Let me make two observations. The reason why blacks are going to basketball court, Kentucky and Louisville, great basketball, whenever the playing field is even, rules of public, goals for referee, fans, scores, transfer, we can make it. Reverend say whenever playing field is even. Rules public, goals for example, a football field, if blacks had to run 12 yards the first time, whites had to run 8 yards in inheritance, say 10 yards for all first downs. So we need to even the playing field. Second thing is that in terms of God, God has a formula. See, if my people are called by my name, people who say they're of God, humble and not arrogant, pride precedes the fall. And seek my face, turn from your wicked ways. Now, the wicked ways, the racist discrimination is wicked. There's no reason why corporate Kentucky cannot hire or train every black in the state. It won't hurt whites because when we grow, everybody grows. It's not a zero-sum game. And then he'll forgive our sins. We cease to be wicked, and we'll hear from heaven. That excites me about the religious part. I heard your choir singing there with such power. If my people will call by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face. Repeats, if my people will call by my name, humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn from the wicked ways, then they will hear from heaven. God will forgive their sins, heal the land. So I'm excited about the prospects of distributing some of this weight. The mayor has certain duties he must perform. The Attorney General must step up to the plate immediately. The governor can convene a special session of the legislature and remove those immunity clauses. Those police who killed Breonna must pay the price. They're paid to protect and serve, not to shoot and dark and kill people. And so let's keep marching, but march nonviolently, and march with faith, march with love. I'm impressed with some of the whites who are marching today. There's something about our humanity that's maturing. We were not always here. Young white America wants a level of decency that they didn't hear from their parents. There's something about learning how the Louisville plays Kentucky, it's red and white, blue and white, not black and white. We learn to live together. The military, we learn to so that it seems to me if we in fact take seriously that proposition, Rand Paul must take the lead and not block lynching as a federal crime. B, remove sovereign immunity from police, do not protect when they kill people. 3 and 4th, student loan debt forgiven. And 5th, Simmons College and HBCUs have a special role that deserve funding.
And to that, I say amen. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Reverend Jackson. Jonathan, God bless you. You need to come back, sir. This city needs to know. We know Jesse Jackson. This city, this nation needs to know you. Thank you, sir.
Say her name! Breonna Taylor! After heated protests and emotional pleas, Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher signed Breonna's Law today. Under the new law, police will no longer be able to enter a suspect's home without announcing who they are, and they must wear body cameras. Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer.
It means that she have saved someone else, and that's really the big thing here, because this shouldn't have happened to her.
It was nearly 3 months ago, March 13th, that police used a battering ram to enter Taylor's apartment after midnight, believing it was being used by a drug dealer to receive packages. While the plainclothed officers contend they identified themselves, Taylor's boyfriend says they did not. and he opened fire to defend himself against what he thought were intruders. He later called 911 with Taylor in his arms after she was shot by police at least 8 times.
Can you get her turned over on her back? I need you to check her and see where she shot at.
Oh my God.
There's been a dramatic increase in the use of no-knock warrants over the last 40 years, mainly for drug-related crimes, with a nearly 7,000% increase.
Innocent bystanders have been killed during the execution of these. So this isn't just a one-time thing. It's a thing that's been going on that finally we are at a point of, this is too much. We have to change it.
Hi, I'm Todd Yeary here outside Dr. King's workshop, the Rainbow Push headquarters, where people of goodwill from all walks and all places gather as comrades in the movement for justice and equality. Social justice movements have been birthed in the imaginations of people in places just like this. You can be a part of this justice movement too. Join Rainbow Push as we fight for justice in the 21st century. Go to rainbowpush.org or dial 773-FREEDOM and remember, keep hope alive.
New York is a current epicenter of the coronavirus, with cases climbing past 100,000.
CDC reports more than 9,000 healthcare workers have been
More than
infected.
30 million Americans have filed for
In
unemployment.
just 2 months, the coronavirus has killed more Americans than the Vietnam War.
And during this historic time, we need to love one another.
Hey, Tavon, it's your mom. I was just calling to check up on you, making sure you're doing okay. I also wanted to remind you, you can only love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. So make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're protecting your mind. All right, love you. Bye.
For my brother, for my sister, for my cousins and my lovers, all God's children. This is for these streets. This is for the weak. If you're feeling down, come on now, come and listen. We need to love one another, need to hug one another. We sell drugs to each other. A brother will say love you, but he'll still kill you. That right there, dog, will be the end of us, but this will be the hill of us. I got the blueprint, how I'm gonna save us. I have the blueprint, how I'm gonna make it. And everybody back home, I ain't forget about you. Don't focus on the current, it will drown you out. And if you lost in the hood, you can't get out. And it's the world's savior, watch me walk it out. Story of my life that I'm about to talk about. How we go from being kings to fiends and now the dreams. Just to be a trap star. And many times go down that road and they didn't get far. And if you tired of the stressing, let this be a lesson. Love is the answer to the question. For my brother, for my sister, for my cousins and my lovers, all God's children. This is for these streets. This is for the weak. If you're feeling down, come on now, come and listen. Dear America, what did destroy heritage? You took our history, changed it, and then you buried it. And I'm just curious, why won't we be like Paris skin? It's the same way Sammy Sosa wanna bleach his skin, like they painted Jesus Christ as a white man. Around and around we go, where the love at? And when you look in the mirror, do you love that? Self-hatred, displacement. It's funny how the hate take on different faces, and how happiness can get you through the mazes. And when you come out, you on top. And keep moving on, cause the hate don't stop. You gotta help yourself to get the love back. You gotta help yourself to get the love back. You gotta help yourself to get the love back. Now where the love at? Now where the love at? For my brother, for my sister, for my cousins and my lovers, all God's children. This is for these streets. This is for the weak. If you're feeling down, come on now, come and listen. Hey, love one another, love one another. Oh yeah, hey, my sisters and my brothers, love one another. Oh yeah, hey, my sisters and my brothers, love one another.
They used to say we were just 3/5 of a man, and we had to fight to be fully recognized. Back then, being counted meant marches, pickets, jail cells, and worse. One way you can show we count in less than 10 minutes is to take the 2020 census. Be a warrior for your community. Be counted and make certain adequate funds and political representation are allocated to your state and your neighborhood. Just select one of these easy options. By phone, call 844-330-2020, online at mycensus2020.gov, or simply mail in your survey. Never forget, you are somebody. Don't delay. Take the census today.
I am somebody.
Dr. Kim, I went to jail with a group of 7 students, July 17, 1960, almost 60 years ago. We never stopped moving. I lost a few jail cells and death. We never stopped moving. I thought it was time to write some of it down so the older generation can learn how we did, and what we did, and how global it was. Whether speaking about Mandela in South Africa, India, Qatar, about Gandhi in India, here at home. This book tells the story, so please get it and give it to your friends. Read it, let's argue about it, let's discuss it.
Yep, so the book is Keeping Hope Alive, Sermons and Speeches of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. It's quite a good collection. You know, we've got sermons and speeches from around the globe because you have made such a global impact, not just here in the U.S., but around the world.
Thank you for tuning in to our International Saturday morning broadcast. We need your support. Here are ways to give to Rainbow Push Coalition. Text PUSH, P-U-S-H, to pound 41444 to support the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push Coalition. When you shop, Amazon gives. Visit Amazon Smile and select Push for Excellence as your charitable organization by starting your shopping at smile.amazon.com.
Get involved with the movement.
Somebody. I may be poor, but I am somebody.
Join the movement.
If you're not a member, become a member.
I am somebody.
Fighting the most important battles for freedom and justice for all.
You made us change. Oh, trying to bring closer.
Join Rainbow Push.
But you're not pushing me away.
Join the movement. Join